Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Today is from Group 5. Group 5 is consists with three members. First is my name Anastasia Dwi Putri, and there's Fatia Khairunisa, and also Rania Rahma Fitriana. The first subject that we want to explain is about designing classroom language tests. First is the purpose of classroom testing and assessment. The obvious point of classroom testing is assess what students have learned after the completion of a lesson or a unit. So since the beginning of our learning process, we are asked to answer the test in order to be promoted to the next level. But at some point, we have never asked ourselves if they are appropriate design. Like what are the object of it, and what is the real purpose of the test, and what kind of grading and feedback that we need to expect. Due to this, we as a teacher have to pay close attention when constructed them to our student. Consequently, it is suggested to choose one test type according to what we want to evaluate. So, the purpose of this context is much more than that. It can be for evaluation of overall proficiency. It can be used to place a student into a course, or it can be used to measure students' achievement within the course. So once you have a clear and stabilized purpose in mind, you can now determine and start working with your objectives. So the second question is, what are the objectives of the test? So what specifically am I trying to find out, or what language knowledge or skill am I assessing? So the word specific here distinguishes an object from a purpose which is more complex and broader. The third question, how will the test specification reflect both the purpose and the objectives? So to evaluate or design a test, you must make sure that the test has a structure that logically follows the unit or lesson is testing. The class objectives should be present in the test through appropriate past types and weights. A logical sequence and variety of tests, so later on we'll be learning more about specific. The fourth question, how will the test tasks be selected and the separated items arranged? So the test tasks need to be practical. For the test to be valid, they should also mirror tests of the course or segment, and they should be authentic. When we say authentic, they have to reflect real-world language use. Another consideration that we can look into make our test as authentic, of course, make the language as natural as possible. And if it is possible, we need to contextualize rather than isolate test tasks, and apart from what we need to include topics which are meaningful, relevant, and interesting to our other needs. So next slide is about the test type based on specific purpose. First, there is a proficiency test, a diagnostic test, placement test, achievement test, and language test. So next slide is proficiency tests. Proficiency tests are almost always summative and non-reference. A proficiency test measures an individual's ability and skills in a domain or subject to know how well she has learned, understood, and internalized the related concept and principles. Such a test in language may assess a student's skills in reading, writing, listening, or vocabulary. Proficiency tests, they provide result in the form of a single score or at best 2 or 3 subscores, one for each section of a test, which is a sufficient result for the gatekeeping role they play, accepting denying someone passage into the next stage of a journey. A typical example of standardized proficiency test is TOEFL. It's produced by the Educational Testing Service, and the TOEFL is used by more than 1,000 institutions of higher education in the United States as an indicator of a prospective student's ability to undertake academic work in English-speaking milieu. And a key issue in testing proficiency is how to construct of language ability are specific, and the tests that test takers are required to perform must be legitimate samples of English language use in a defined context. Next slide is a diagnostic test. A diagnostic test is designed to diagnose specific aspect of a language. A test in a pronunciation, for example, might be diagnose the phonological feature of English that are difficult for learners and should therefore become part of a curriculum. A diagnostic test is, for example, usually such a test over of a checklist of a feature for the administrator, or often the teacher, to use in pinpointing difficulties. A writing diagnostic will elicit a writing sample from a student that would allow teacher to identify those rhetorical and linguistic features on which the course needed to focus special attention. So the next slide is placement test. A placement test usually but not always include a sampling of the materials to be covered in the various courses in a curriculum. A student performance on the test should indicate the point at which the student will find material neither too easy or too difficult, but appropriately challenging. The English as a second language placement test, or ESLPT, at San Francisco State University has 3 parts. In the part 1, students read a short article and then write a summary essay. In the part 2, students write a composition in a response to the article. And the part 3 is multiple choice. Students read an essay and identify grammar error in it. The maximum time allowed for the test is 3 hours. The San Francisco State, or ESLPT, serve dual purpose. Any placement test that offers information beyond simply designating of courses, of course, a course level, may also serve a diagnostic purpose. And the next slide is achievement test. An achievement test is related directly to classroom lessons, units, or even a total curriculum. Achievement tests are or should be limited to particular material addressed in a curriculum within a particular time frame and offered after a course has focused on the objectives in the question. Achievement tests can also serve the diagnostic role of indicating what student needs to continue to work in the future, but the primary role on the achievement test is to determine whether course objectives has been met and appropriate knowledge and skill acquired by the end period of instruction. Achievement tests are often summative because they are administered at the end of unit or term of study. They also play an important formative role. An effective achievement test will offer feedback about the quality of the learner's performance in the subset of the unit of course. This feedback contributes to the formative natures of such tests. There are also a fine line of difference between a diagnostic test and a general achievement test. Achievement tests analyze the extent to which students have acquired language features that have already been taught. Diagnostic tests should elicit information on what students need to work on in the future. Achievement tests range from 5 or 10 minutes quizzes to 3-hour final examination, with an almost infinite variety of item types and the last slide is language aptitude test. A language aptitude test is designed to measure capacity or general ability to learn a foreign language and ultimate success in that undertaking. Language aptitude tests are ostensibly designed to apply to the classroom learning of any language. There are two examples of language aptitude tests. First is the Modern Language Aptitude Test, or MALAT, and the second is the Pimsleur Language Aptitude Battery, or PLAB. The Modern Language Aptitude Test, or MALAT tests are number learning. Examiners must learn a set of numbers through oral input and then discriminate different combinations of those numbers. And the second is phonetic script. Examiners must learn a set correspondence between speech sound and phonetic symbol. And the third is spelling clues. Examiners must read words that are spelled somewhat phonetically, and then select from a list the one word whose meaning is closest to the disguised word. And the fourth is word in sentence. Examiners are given a key word in a sentence and are then asked to select a word in a second sentence that perform the same grammatical function as the keyword. And the last is paired associates. Examiners must quickly learn a set of vocabulary word from another language and memorize their English meanings. I think that's enough from me. The next subject is going to explain by Fatia Khairunisa. Thank you.
Okay, next is select appropriate item and assessment based on specific purpose. The first is proficiency test. Proficiency tests have traditionally consist of standard multiple choice item on grammar, vocabulary, reading comprehension. For example, IELTS and TOEFL. The TOEFL is used by more than 1,000 institutions of higher education in the US as an indicator of prospective student ability to undertake academic work in English speaking. The TOEFL consists of sections on listening comprehension and then structure or grammatical, reading comprehension, and writing expression. In the classroom, proficiency tests often have a significant backwards effect. Learners focus narrow to preparing the test item. One way to make practice for exam more meaningful is by asking learners to prepare their own practice question for the. Okay, next is diagnostic test. The item on the diagnostic test, there are classroom assessment, mock samples, writing tests, or quiz. In a classroom diagnostic test, teacher must identify and then give a treatment for students who have difficulty in the material. For example, a writing diagnostic test would first elicit a writing sample of the students. Then the teacher will identify the organization, content, spelling, grammar, or vocabulary of their writing. Based on that identification, teacher would know the needs of students that should have special focus. And the diagnostic test will typically offer more detailed subcategories information on the learner. In a curriculum, that has a form focus based. For example, a diagnostic test might offer information about a learner's acquisition of verb tense, modal auxiliaries, define article, relative cause, and okay, the next is placement tests. Items on the placement test are assessing comprehension and production, oral performance, multiple choice item, and gap filling format. For example, English as a second language placement test at San Francisco State University. In part 1, students read a short article and then write a summary essay. In part 2, students write a composition in response to an article. Part 3 is multiple choice. Students read an essay and identify grammar errors in it. The maximum time allowed for the test is 3 at San Francisco State involved a combination of reading and writing, with a heavy emphasis on writing. The first part of the test acts as both a test of reading comprehension and a test of writing. The second part requires students to state opinions and to back them up, a task that forms a major component of the writing course. Finally, proofreading draft of essay is a useful academic skill, and the exercise in error detection simulates the proofreading process. Okay, next will be explained by Rania.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Rania Rahma Fitriana. Next, achievement test. In achievement test, we can use the item consists of matching types, error detection, multiple choice items, very short answer, and true or false. First, matching types. Matching type is two columns are given with equal items. The A columns is matched with answer from B columns. Next, error detection. In error detection, students must underline or circle the error grammar in the sentence. Next, multiple choice. Multiple choice for a question, options are given and students have to choose the correct options. Next, very short answer. This includes fill in the blanks, give one word, and give phrase or simple statement as answer. And the last, true or false. The statements are given and test takers have to mark true for correct statement and false for incorrect statements. For example, you can see in the books, page 21, achievement tests range from 5 or 10 minutes quiz to 3-hour final examination, with an almost infinite of item types and formats. Here is the outline for a midterm examination offered at the highest intermediate level of an intensive English program in the US. As you can see, Section A, Vocabulary, Part 1, consists of 5 items. Match word and definition. And then Part 2 consists of 5 items. Use the word in a sentence. Next, Section B, Grammar, consists of 10 sentences. Error detection, a student must underline or circle the error. Section C, reading comprehension, consists of two one-paragraph passage. There is 4 short answer items for each. And then section D, writing, respond to a 2 paragraphs article on Native American culture. Next, language aptitude test. In language aptitude test, you can use multiple choices item. But from the modern language aptitude test, tasks consist of number learning, phonetic script, spelling clues or hidden words, words in sentences, and period associate. For example, the modern language aptitude tests have 5 sections, each one testing separate abilities. First, number learning. This section is designed in part to measure the subject memory as well as an auditory alertness, factor which would affect the subject's auditory comprehension of a foreign language. Next, phonetic script. This section is designed to measure the subject sound symbol association ability, which is the ability to learn correlation between speech sounds and written symbols. Next, spelling clues or hidden words. This highly speeded section is designed to test the subject as well as his or her sound symbol association ability. Next, word in sentences. This section is designed to measure the subject sensitivity to grammatical structure without using any grammatical terminology. And the last, period associates. This section is designed to measure the subject's rote memorization ability, which is a typical component of foreign language learning. Ya, jadi untuk select item and assessment ini jadi disesuaikan dengan tes apa yang akan dilakukan. Misalnya untuk achievement test bisa menggunakan pilihan ganda atau error detection kayak gitu. Jadi disesuaikan aja sama tesnya itu tes apa. Kurang lebih seperti itu. Next, classify the assessment types related to a specific purpose. From the explanation about text types, we conclude that there are 3 assessment types related to specific purpose. They are diagnostic assessment, formative assessment, and summative assessment. First, summative assessment. Summative assessment is assessment administered at the end of an instructional unit in a course. These assessments are intended to evaluate student learning by comparing performance to a standard or benchmark. They are often high stakes. For the meaning, they have a high point value. For example of summative assessment include midterm exams, a final exam, or final project. Next, formative assessment. Formative assessment is process of evaluating the students' knowledge as they learn. It is a method of ongoing assessment, and it involves putting together a series of quick-fire questions and exercise to help you monitor the learner's progress during the course. And the last, diagnostic assessment. Diagnostic assessment is a form of pre-assessment where teachers can evaluate students' strengths, weaknesses, knowledge, and skill before their instruction. I will explain one by one. First, proficiency test. Proficiency test is summative assessment because these tests have traditionally consist of standardized multiple choices item on grammar, vocabulary, reading comprehension, and listening comprehension. And the test, for example, is TOEFL. Nah, jadi dalam proficiency test ini, kenapa sumatif? Karena di dalam tes ini memiliki standar atau tolak ukur penilaiannya. Jadi ada standar pilihan ganda dalam grammarnya, vocabulary-nya, reading comprehension-nya, bukan cuma betul segini, salah segini, bukan, jadi ada standarnya. And next, diagnostic test. Diagnostic test is formative or diagnostic assessment because in formative or diagnostic assessment, the teacher can evaluate students' strengths, weakness, knowledge, and skill before their instruction. Jadi dalam diagnostic test ini termasuk ke dalam formatif dan diagnostic assessment, karena dalam formatif dan diagnostik ini sama-sama guru itu mengevaluasi atau mengidentifikasi kelebihan atau kekurangan siswanya sebelum instruksi yang diberikan. Next, placement test. Placement test is summative assessment because this test can also be used to diagnose student level, for example in grammar, and then they have a standard. For example, in page 20, as you can see, if your score 0 to 35, your level is beginner, and if your score 36 to 50, your level is elementary. Jadi ada pembagian standar levelnya. Kalau kamu total skornya 0 sampai 35, level kamu itu beginner. Kalau skor kamu 36 sampai 50, berarti level kamu elementary. Jadi dilihat ada standar ketentuannya gitu. And next, achievement test. Achievement test is summative. Is summative assessment, but also important to formative role. Achievement tasks belong to summative because they are administered at the end on a unit or term of study. And important to formative role because an effective achievement test will offer flashback about the quality of learners' performance in subsets of the unit course. This flashback contributes to the summative. Nah, jadi achievement test ini menurut kelompok kami itu summative assessment. Nah, karena tes ini dilakukan di akhir pembelajaran. Contohnya kayak final exam kayak gitu. And the last language aptitude test. Language aptitude test is summative assessment because this test evaluate students learning against some standard or benchmark. For example, 2 standardized aptitude tests have been used in the United States. First, the modern language aptitude test and the Pimsleur language aptitude battery. Jadi language aptitude test ini adalah summative assessment karena balik lagi ketika tes ini dilakukan ada standar penilaiannya dan ada skornya. Contohnya kayak psikotes, kan ini aptitude test. Contohnya kayak psikotes. Jadi assessment ini melihat apakah untuk mengetahui ability studentsnya atau kelemahan-kelebihan muridnya atau untuk penempatan kelas. Jadi ada perbedaan antara sumatif, formatif, diagnostik kayak gitu.
The conclusion in this material is the test based on a specific purpose. There are many types of tests, and in each of these tests there are differences in the test given, namely according to their use. In addition, the item used are all various kind and the type of assessment are also different. They are summative assessment, formative assessment, and diagnostic assessment. Okay guys, thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.